And good afternoon, everybody. And that's my intro. That's if you guys watch, if you guys listen to Chris Russo or watch Chris Russo, you know what I'm doing. But yeah, for sure. I don't know if
Hello,
anybody.
hello, everybody. Bad Dog in the Morning here.
There we go. That's a good one. But welcome everybody to episode number 39 of RizzoCast. This is a very special edition. As you guys know, I've been doing RizzoCast Takeover, where people that want to come on and talk about what they want to talk about. And today's guest, do you want to introduce yourself, who you are?
Well, who am I? Who I am? It's not important. uh, what's up, guys? Nick Vezmar here, formerly of Around the Foghorn, formerly of Vavel Sports, formerly of China Basin Chatter, China Basin Cast. Geez, I'm dropping all the plugs here tonight. What else did I do? I think that's pretty much it. You know, I think we'll cut it off right there. A couple side projects, I'm sure that I'm forgetting, but
Well, you got a lot on the resume there. It's pretty respectable.
yeah. Pretty good amateur sports journalist resume. Not bad.
Yeah. And I actually wrote with Nick with China Basin Chatter, and that was a lot of fun. I have some good articles that I still look back to today and say, wow, that was a good article. So I appreciate you for giving some of us that platform last baseball season, I should say. So let's get into number one thing here. And we lost a legend last weekend with the passing of Henry Aaron, who passed away at the age of 86. He was the home run king for a long time, finished with 755 career home runs, had the most total bases by far. So if you look at his total bases, Nick, this is crazy. It blew me away when I first saw it. He had 116 miles of bases, right? Barry Bonds only had 101 miles, like miles in terms of total bases, and it
Right.
equals miles. So that's pretty crazy. So just reflecting on Hank Aaron real quick, where were your thoughts of losing a legend over the weekend?
Losing number 44, I mean, it really kind of, it tears at your heartstrings. I mean, I remember reading it, and I guess I never realized, born in 1934, so I don't, you never realize how old some of these guys are, especially looking at someone like Willie Mays, and you're like, oh my God, like, and then you think about it. It was really difficult. I mean, we lost a legend in the baseball world, 100%. You're talking about a 3-time Gold Glover, 25-time All-Star.
Never gonna happen again.
Never going to happen again. I even if there was a guy who could go 25 years, I don't think he would ever manage to make himself into an All-Star game. I mean, the guy was just Hank Aaron was one of those guys. He's on my Mount Rushmore of baseball, without a doubt. And not you for also. Not only for getting career record in total bases, but total career record in RBIs as well at 2297.
Yeah, I left that one out in the intro. Thanks for saving
So,
me.
yeah, and you're talking so 162 game average. You're talking 113 RBIs per season. I mean, when a guy gets 80 RBIs, that's like a good measure of like a fantastic baseball player this time around. And 20 years ago, that number was even higher. But could you imagine a guy hitting 113 RBIs in one season consistently?
No, I can't. And it's incredible because he did it. So he was dominant, like in his late 30s. Like he was still putting up bombs, still hitting home runs, still driving in runs. He was
Yep.
still very good late in his career.
Yeah, absolutely. So when he was 39, so it was because episode 39 tonight for you, of course, as we mentioned earlier. So he was still at 20 home runs, 40. I stand corrected. 40 home runs, 96 RBIs, a 301 batting average at 39. At 39.
That's crazy. That's unbelievable. And it will never happen again. You're right. The numbers he put up, the black ink on the back of his baseball card, it will never happen again. And I think you nailed it on the head when you said Mount Rushmore, because I think there's a few names you could put on there. Babe Ruth has to be on there. I think Willie Mays is on mine, Hank Aaron, and then you could, fill your thumbs with the fourth name.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right on that one. I'm just trying to think of who my fourth would be, and it would, you know, what I'm thinking of. I mean, but oh, geez, what would my? Yeah, I'm trying to think now. Now you're really gonna start putting me through this. Um, but so yeah, no, Babe Ruth definitely on my Mount Rushmore. You have to the Babe. It's the Babe, man. You know, you
Yeah,
can't. Um, what I'm trying to. Why can't the names coming off the top of my head?
I guess Jackie
Uh,
Robinson. You know, he was
yeah,
the first.
Jackie Robinson. I think absolutely. I think you can. You know, definitely.
Mhm.
Maybe someday we'll all wear 42.
Yeah, exactly. In
And
my last episode, I actually had the president of the Negro Leagues Museum, Mr. Bob Kendrick, on the show, and we talked about, you know, if I were to tell you in 1920 that the top three, well, if we're talking about Josh Gibson, because I know MLB is now recognizing Negro Leagues as an official, you know, league, so it's not going to happen. But if they did give 800 home runs to Josh Gibson, the top three home run hitters in the history of baseball would be three black men. So that's incredible, and it shows how far we've come.
yep, absolutely. So yeah, Hank Aaron definitely that was a difficult one, but you know it's he was getting up there in age, so I guess it didn't really come as much of a surprise, but it does shock people. It does, so you can't take away that.
Yeah, for sure. So rest in peace, Hank Aaron. Thoughts go out to his family and friends, of course. Um, and the person that broke, I should say, Hank Aaron's home run record was the great Barry Bonds. And Barry Bonds is kind of hanging on a thread right now. He's in the newspapers. For unfortunate reasons, he did not get into the Hall of Fame. He's got one more year left, but he did not get in the Hall of Fame. And Nick, I'm going to tell you right now, the Baseball Writers Association of America that vote for this need to get their bleep together. Can I say? Well, I guess I can't say it. They need
Get
to
their
get their
crap
shit.
together.
Yes,
Yeah,
they got to figure it out because this guy needs to get in.
yeah. Look, Ray Ratto said it the best in 2012 when Barry Bonds was first on the ballot, and this discussion came up. I think it was 2012 when he was first on the ballot. Was it 2012 or 2013? I can't remember.
13.
It was okay. You're right because we were crossing over into 13. That's where I remember. Yeah, we were crossing over into 13 at the end of 12, and I remember the quote rang loudly in that the Hall of Fame is not church. And this year, the fact that there was not a person, not a new inductee into the Hall of Fame, is an absolute shame. That to me is absolutely shameful. I think these guys, these writers, have way too much power when it comes. Now, I'm not saying that we need to go out and turn this into a fan vote because then you're going to have all kinds of skewed things. I think the writers have a good barometer on who belongs into the Hall of Fame, but at the same time, to not have anybody at all, I mean, that's ridiculous. Why? I mean, why? Why could that even be the case? And Barry Bonds, look, you hate him, you like him. I doesn't matter to me. I like the guy. I grew up idolizing the guy. Wanted to be exactly like him. Of course, I was a righty, so I couldn't exactly be a left-hand power hitter. But the numbers are that, and even before the roids, even before all this stuff, the guy was still a Hall of Fame candidate in my mind. 7-time MVP, 8-time Gold Glover, 12-time Silver Slugger. You got to get out of this whole mindset that the personalities are going to start weighing in on whether or not you come into the Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
It's crap because Babe Ruth, career drunk womanizer, but we were just talking about him. He ends up on your baseball Mount Rushmore. He ends up in the Hall of Fame, no problem. There's plenty of guys
Hi,
who
Cobb.
have, yeah, guys who have broken the law, guys who have, you know, beaten people up, guys who are a part of all these controversies, guys who have probably gambled on the game are sitting in the Hall of Fame. So, you know, really, is it a hall of good people? Is that where we're supposed to be? Is that what this is supposed? And the other part of this argument is these are the same writers that are making money off of writing about Barry Bonds. You mean to tell me that these national sports writers who are now all of a sudden these moral pariahs, that they're just, oh, we got to, this is what's so important. We have to keep the integrity in the Hall of Fame. Where was your integrity when you were writing about him breaking the single season record? Where was your integrity when he broke Hank Aaron's record? Where was your integrity then? Where was it? Nowhere.
Exactly.
It was in trying to make the money for your articles and for all the stuff that you guys wrote, your opinion pieces, so you could have a job, so you could wake up in the morning and be, I'm a baseball writer, and then to turn around and just slap the guy in the face. Come on.
Yeah, you hit it. You hit it. You gave, some of the arguments I share. They made money off of the game. The sports writers made money off of these people, the entire era. And to piggyback off your first thought, Barry Bonds was a part of the 400 club prior to using, and that's according to Game of Shadows. Game of Shadows said 1999. That's the first year he, did the Balco stuff and whatnot. But he was already 400. He already had the 8 Gold Gloves. He was already on path to the Hall of Fame. If you take away his numbers, video game numbers that he put up in the early 2000s, he's still there. He was the best player of the 90s. He was better than Griffey. I mean, Barry Bonds, it's incredible. And plus, he was facing pitchers that were on the same stuff he was on. These guys, have the same advantage. Jose Canseco, here's another point I have. Jose Canseco wrote a book called Juiced. I have it on my bookshelf. It's a great book. And he pretty much predicted. He listed names, and these were big-time names of everybody that he speculated, or not speculated, everybody he knew used PEDs. Mark McGwire, Ivan Rodriguez, all these guys that he speculated. The Mitchell report comes out years later. He nailed every single one of them. And Ivan Rodriguez was among the names that Canseco wrote about. And he's in the Hall of Fame. He's in the Hall of Fame. Jeff Bagwell is in the Hall of Fame. These guys, for some reason, had no suspicion around them. Mike Piazza, a 60th round pick.
Yeah.
He admitted to using the same stuff Mark McGwire was on. He admitted to it, and he's in the Hall of Fame. So he used a banned substance. He wrote about it in his book. And then after McGwire got caught, he's like, oh, I'm not using this anymore. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating that, guys that are in, that used, are already in, and Barry Bonds. And here's another thing. Bud Selig's in the Hall of Fame. If Bud Selig's in the Hall of Fame, who ignored every single bit of what was going on, then I think Barry Bonds and company should be in the Hall of Fame. What did you think about Curt Schilling? He missed by like 16 votes, I think.
Yeah, I think he was, they needed 301 to get in this year, or as with every year. What did he finish at? 285.
Yeah, Curt
So
Schilling is a
71% of
Hall
the
of
vote.
Fame pitcher. And I don't care what he said. Look, I disagree with almost everything that comes out of Curt Schilling's mouth. But Mike
Yeah,
Mussina in the Hall of Fame, if you had a game 7, you would pick Curt Schilling over Mike Mussina. I mean, the guy's a Hall of Famer, and his politics, they suck. Like, honestly, he's just a horrible human being. But, I mean, he has a right to be a horrible human being. But,
right.
he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
I mean, that's the thing. Are we voting on the guy's character, or are we voting on his ability? And you take a look at some of the guys, like take for instance last year's ballot: Derek Jeter, Larry Walker, both in the Hall of Fame as of last year's ballot. Um, Larry Walker, for as much of a power guy as he could have been, still 383 home runs. Derek Jeter, 260. So guys that are not part of that 400 club, like you're mentioning. Edgar Martinez, the year before, 309 home runs. Just going down the list here. You really don't meet a 400 home run guy until 2018 when we had Chipper Jones, Vlad Guerrero, Jim Thome, guys like that. So, yeah, it's about damn time. But I just, until something gets changed dramatically about the voting, I just, I'm afraid Barry Bonds just might be the guy that's going to end up in the Hall of Very Good.
yeah, and you're right. It is not a church, and it's not a fraternity. It's a fraternity among the guys that are in there, but they have no say of who gets in. The writers do, and frankly, it's a museum. And if you want to, like, basically what they're doing right now, they're writing a story about, you have the 70s, the 80s, the early 90s, boom, the 2010s, because they skipped over an entire era of baseball.
Yeah,
Barry Bonds' stuff is in there. Why can't he have a plaque? It's incredible. It's really incredible. And I will tell you
right.
this, and you're probably going to agree with me on this. If David Ortiz gets in first ballot, all hell will break loose.
Oh yeah, and yeah, no, are you kidding? Um, Definitely. And I think who's on? I was going to say I'm looking at the ballot for the potential ballot for next
Timmy,
year.
Tim Lincecum.
Ah, look at that! Look at that! You're right. He is eligible. We'll also have guys like A-Rod, Mark
Yeah.
Teixeira, Jimmy Rollins, Carl Crawford, Jake Peavy, Justin Morneau, Juan Uribe,
A few former
Marlon
Giants.
Byrd, Marlon Byrd, another guy who got popped for PEDs.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm surprised that he even would potentially make a ballot. That's kind of interesting. Jeff Francoeur,
Oh God.
even Ryan Vogelsong could potentially make a ballot.
God, it might be a while until we have like a slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famer get in.
Yeah, because I just don't see any of these guys on the list are just no. It's um, yeah. I don't think you can make an argument for Big Poppy. Um,
Of
you
course, he
know,
had the positive test that was not supposed to be public. Because of course, if you test positive the first time, it does not become public. Uh, it's just kind of a warning, and then you get the 50 games, and you get now it's 80. So you get
oh,
the
that's
80
right.
games. What's after 80? Is it still 100? Because I feel like
I
that's
think
not.
it's. I don't know. That's a good
Because I
question.
know I know the third one is definitely lifetime ban, which a few people have gotten. I believe
Mhm.
Mejia with the Mets has gotten it. There's been a few people that have gotten that ban, um, and you could appeal it after a year of being permanently banned. But
Yeah, so the first positive test result is an 80 game. The second positive is an entire season, including the postseason.
oh, I see.
Third positive is a lifetime ban.
Yeah, well, Manny Ramirez had two positive tests, and he's getting some traction. But here's what I would say about Manny: the second suspension knocked him out of baseball. It ended his career. So I
Yeah,
feel like he kind of served his sentence. So he's an interesting one to look forward to. So we love Hall of Fame talk for sure, and we could talk about it all day.
all
But let's
day.
move. Yeah, let's move on here to the happenings. And I hate to talk about COVID every episode. I'm kind of getting tired of it, but um, Oracle Park and other ballparks across the country are getting ready for possibly opening their stadiums to fans for the 2021 baseball season. And it's really interesting. And Larry Baer sent out a letter. The president of the Giants sent out a letter to fans saying, hey, we're going to try to get ballparks open. Do you see this as any kind of possibility?
Um,
That's a loaded question. I know.
yeah, I mean, we started seeing it with the NFL, right? So in the playoffs, we're starting to see, um, social distancing in place. Um, I don't know if you can, with the trend that we're on, and I don't want to get into politics too much, but like I was posting on Twitter the other day. I mean, we were at an all time low in ICU bed capacity, and all of a sudden, boom! Within a week, everything's fine again. We can have outdoor dining. Um, I don't know. I've seen weirder things happen. I think in 3 months, if we can go see baseball games, that might not be the weirdest thing to happen because technically it is outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
You can force people to submit to certain things, whether it be a rapid test or sanitization or whatever. Sanitization, is that even a word? God.
I think it might be
Sanitizing, sanitiz
sanitizing.
sanitation is what I'm thinking
There
of,
you go.
but sanitizing. So it's past 8 o'clock. I can't think about words right now. So yeah, but you get what I mean. You can force people to do things when they enter in the stadium because they're voluntarily coming in the stadium. They're paying for their ticket, so you can kind of subject them to whatever measures you deem necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw that change, a few years back when they started putting metal detectors in and doing a lot more stringent security getting into the ballpark. Um, so, yeah, it could be a possibility, but at what I think maybe it's because these teams are looking at it from a cost perspective. How many more seasons can we go without having fans at the stadium? I know, there are teams like the Yankees and the Cubs and these big market teams will all be taken care of by their TV deals. But you start thinking about teams, smaller market teams, throwing it out there like Cleveland, Minnesota, Arizona, Seattle,
Mhm.
places where there isn't a huge national sports presence. Um, that could certainly be an issue. And I'm sure teams are trying to figure out a way, hey, how can we get ticket sales up with maintaining these strict social standards or rules that they're being put in place?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for sure, and I think I'm trying to think, would you, because the answer for me is if it's safe, like if I'm not packed in with 40,000 people, I wouldn't have a problem. But you would definitely go. Would you go to a game right now if it was, I'm trying to think, how 10,000 people?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even, I mean, because I work out with the general public anyways.
Hmm.
So, and I mean, why not? Why, uh, why even think about it? I wouldn't even think about it. I would just, nope, I'm there. Absolutely. Now it all depends. Now, so I'm going to put a caveat on that because I'm thinking about what it would cost, because obviously at 10,000 tickets in a 40,000 person ballpark, um, the demand is going to be pretty high, I would think. So what's the price going to be on those tickets? Am I going to pay $200 to sit in the bleachers? Probably not.
Oh yeah.
Last the last time I did that, the Giants were in the playoffs. So um, I guess it just all depends on what the ticket prices are. But if they're reasonably priced, because most of the time I hang out at the Garden Bar anyway, so what does it matter? Um, but if the price is right, yeah, I would definitely go.
I think I would too, and you're right. I think they might be charging more um, for limited capacity, which I mean that's a crime, but I mean it is kind of what they have to do. I mean, and I think people would pay to get into a game now because they haven't been in a year. I mean, people are hungry for baseball in person, and people are hungry for sports in person. People are hungry for in person, activity, and I think we all can't wait until this whole COVID thing is past us. Um, Speaking of the Giants, they added an infielder here. Um, they did finalize the deal, I guess, with infielder Tommy La Stella. He's going to get a 3-year deal. This is the longest contract in terms of length um, in the Farhan Zaidi era. So, and I did not do my research. How much did he get? Do you know how much? Because I'm going to look it up real
Um,
quick.
yeah,
Because I did not do the
I haven't looked at
comps.
the numbers on the deal here. I haven't seen the numbers yet because I'm looking at Fangraphs right now. So I haven't. I just know that they've committed 3 years to him. Um, I haven't seen anything. Uh,
Yeah, we'll get
any.
terms somewhere soon. But
Well,
how do you
yeah.
see this? How do you see this signing fit? On this team, what kind of player, or what do you like about Tommy Listow? Let's start there. What do you like about this signing?
Pure hitter.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a guy that's going to hit for power, but he is a guy that's going to keep the lineup moving along. And he's hit in the NL East and the NL Central, now the AL West. He's had experience there, so he is your journeyman, your MLB journeyman, your infielder guy. He's a perfect platoon guy. A good solid left-handed bat. So he's going to probably tandem in with a couple different guys. But yeah, I have no problem with this signing at all. I think this is it's good for depth. It's good for platooning. It might also send a message to some of these other guys that, hey, you got to start picking up your end because we have no problem pulling the trigger on guys that are going to start helping our lineup out. And yeah, this probably surprised me a lot. The 3-year deal really surprises me under the Zaidi regime, because you really think about what has he done in the last couple of years and who he's brought in, and they haven't been to really long deals. They've been a lot of things have been just 1 year, 2 year deals, working it out easy. 3 years, I mean, now you're like, oh wow, well, this is a big thing. It's a big thing. So, and then who else who else, I forget who they signed at the start of the offseason. It was Jason Vossler, right?
Jason Vossler, who is a friend of the podcast, came on the show.
Oh, how could I forget?
Yeah, Jason Vossler is
Uh,
this is not going to be good news for him, I'm sure.
yeah, because he is also another left-handed infield bat. So that's, I mean, you got Belt, you got Crawford. I don't think Listella would play at a first base or a corner position. Um, but he'll be able to tandem with guys like Dubon and Flores, and even Solano, because it's just, again, we have the righty bats there. We saw what Flores and Solano can do. Um, so now we got to get something on the other side of the bat, because I don't know how much you can believe in Crawford. I know he had a much better season, and again, it was a shortened season, so you're wondering when he was going to hit that wall where he absolutely slumps and he just can't hit he can't hit himself out of a wet paper bag. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But I like this Listella signing. I know this really pisses off my brother, who's a big A's fan, because I think even Angels fans and A's fans are kind of like, oh God, the Giants got this guy. Oh boy. Well, so that shows you something. Then that shows you what kind of contributions he can give to a lineup.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think Listella, you nailed it when you said platoon guy. I think he's going to be a platoon guy for probably the length of this contract. And Giants are really going platoon heavy as we move in here to, possible configurations of how they decide to go about their lineup. And I think, we could agree that Buster Posey's a lock at catcher. He will at least start the season as the Giants' starting catcher. Kirk Casale is going to get, anybody that backs up Buster Posey is going to play a lot more than the average backup catcher, especially now since Posey had the year off. So I think we're going to see a lot of Kirk Casale behind the plate.
Right.
Casale's caught in a lot of these former Reds pitchers. First base is interesting, though, and here's where we run into an interesting thing. Brandon Belt barely played against left-handed pitching, and it benefited his overall numbers in terms of slugging, OPS. Almost everything was better for Brandon Belt in that short sample size. Wilmer Flores, I believe, is going to get a lot of starts over there against right-handers. First base, let's start there. What do you think about, Belt kind of moving into that limited playing time role?
And I think ultimately that's what's going to have to happen, right? Is if his numbers are going to want to stay up there, you're going to have to platoon him as need be, or give him 2 days on and then his third day is off. You got to do something in there to mix it up, because quite frankly, 220 isn't going to cut it in this lineup. There are going to be a lot of guys that are going to be wanting to hit, a lot of guys who are hungry for that. I'm sorry, not 220. I'm thinking more like 230, 240 is probably not even going to cut it now. He did play for, he did play basically a full season last season, hitting 309, not terrible, 9 home runs. So it's clear that he kind of knows where his role is now. Yeah, I think, and especially with Posey coming back and knowing his health issues, it wouldn't surprise me if we see that off day turnaround with Posey playing a lot more first base, and trading off with Belt.
Yeah, for sure. And as we move over, I guess we could go around the diamond here.
Sure.
Second base. At second base, we saw, a lot of different guys over there. I know we saw Solano, we saw Flores. It's interesting because those are two right-handed bats, and second base is the only position where I'm not really sure. Of course, Listella probably against right-handed pitching, but it's hard to believe that Solano, who held his own against right-handed pitching, is going to get kind of pushed into a platoon role. And I believe he got a Silver Slugger award in the National League at second base. So it's crazy that they find a platoon partner for him. So do you think Solano is going to kind of be the same guy he was? I think he's bound to maybe take a step back. What's thoughts on Solano here?
Yeah, maybe because at some point I think we even saw it when he was with Miami, the real regression in numbers when he played a full season. Keep in mind that Solano only played half the season in 2019. He played 81 games. Now that was just a result of, well, actually no, because he got signed almost right away in April.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even like he missed part of a season. In his time, we saw in his time with the Marlins when he was playing over 100 games, that average was dipping down to like 250, 240. And then he had his last season in Miami, he was batting 189. So I think at some point he's going to get figured out. That Silver Slugger, I mean, it's good, but again, shortened season, so we really don't know what he was going to put out in a span of 100 plus games because we didn't even see that in 2019. So who knows with him? I'm in a favor towards regression on this one, but he could be the guy that could be your platoon middle infielder. The bat you bring off the bench when you need a bat. And that's where you start wondering about where Flores is going to be.
Yeah.
Because now you're stacking two righties there in the middle infield. You got LaStella and Crawford, both lefties. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how that intertwines and who's going to get the short end of the stick and end up having to, possibly be worried about being tendered or being sent down to the minors for an assignment or whatever. Or maybe even traded. Maybe you could package one of these guys in a trade with something. I don't know what you're going to get in return, but I don't think it's going to be anything impressive. But now, yeah. And see, this was the whole thing. It's like, a couple years ago, we were talking about how are we going to be able to fill the shoes of a regressing Panic and Crawford. And now all of a sudden we have the complete opposite of that problem. Now we've got a middle infield jacked with hitters, not necessarily the best defensive guys. So now what do we do? How are we gonna throw this all in together? And I think they did a pretty okay job of that last year. The defense really started off rocky last year, as we all know. And that's something that I'm gonna entrust Zaidi and Kapler to kind of just figure out.
Yeah, and if they could trade a little bit of defense for more offense, I think I would take that trade. I think if Donovan Solano does not have to be Ozzie Smith at second base or shortstop. He does not have to,
No.
catch the ball, make the routine play, and I think, you'll be fine. And Longoria, look at, and I know you touched on Crawford. Longoria is another veteran that had, a good year last year. I mean, he's been steady. He's been a very steady force at third base since the Giants traded for him. I think he's going to stay there. I think maybe LaStella gets a few starts over there at third base, but I think he's probably another lock. And I got weird timing. I got the shirt on right here, the Longo shirt that I got when he first came over. It was on clearance, so I just dug and got it. But what do you think about the outfield? I mean, that's, to me, the most perplexing situation here because, Dickerson and Ruff, there was nothing wrong. That was actually a platoon that worked out great.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have a true center fielder on the roster. Steven Duggar's not going to make the team because he doesn't hit. So, Mauricio Dubon, I guess, in center field, maybe you put Yastrzemski back out there, or Yastrzemski moves to right and plays with Slater. I think Yastrzemski's going to play every day anyways, but what do you think about this outfield situation?
So Dickerson, Slater, and Yaz, I think, are all pretty much your locks for the outfield, along with Ruff. And yeah, because I mean, Jalen Davis, I mean, the guy's got power, but it's famine, it's feast or famine for him.
A lot
More
of swing and
famine than
misses.
not. Yeah, and you're right, Duggar. I don't see him making a starting roster. He would really have to like succeed in spring training for someone to be like, yeah, okay, all right, maybe we give him another shot. But I think the Giants have kind of worn out their welcome with Duggar there. So yeah, it's trying to find that true center fielder and where are you going to get it from? And that's why we're starting to hear about the Giants starting to court some of these other guys out in free agency land. Um, I know today they had a big talk with Jock Peterson, supposedly. Although I think Jock's going to be more of that corner outfield kind of guy. But I mean, that could be an interesting thing. That could be an interesting add into the lineup. The guy certainly, has power like numbers. Again, playing in Dodger Stadium, you're going to have slightly elevated numbers, not like Coors Field numbers, but um, yeah, the Giants have a real dilemma about that center field position again.
Yeah, for sure. And I think maybe if you do get a Jock Peterson, you could maybe hide Yastrzemski in center field again. I know they've done it for a few straight years where he's gotten a lot of starts out there. Because I don't see anybody going um, into left field because I think that's pretty much set. I think Dickerson's pretty much proven himself against right-handed pitching. Um, but center field's going to be weird because I think Jackie Bradley Jr. is good enough to where they could sign him to play center field. I don't know, but Eddie Rosario, I know they're talking about signing him to play right field. If they get another left-handed bat, I think it will make a lot of things easier. But I think Jock is pretty much a platoon guy at this point. I know he platooned with the Dodgers last year in left field.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that will be an interesting situation to see who they acquire. I think it all depends on how much they trust Austin Slater and Mauricio Dubon. I think those are the two guys who, if they do get an outfielder, it's going to affect them the most. So that should be interesting. Before we end here, you and I both have experience in journalism, and journalism is definitely a road, obviously, that I want to go down. You've done some amateur blogging and writing yourself. How was your experience? What kind of got you involved in admiring the media side of things?
Well, it's very interesting. It's very interesting how my amateur sports journalism career got started. I was an admin for San Francisco Giants memes. Um, yeah, and all of a sudden one day I got a message from these guys at Vavel, and Vavel is they're kind of more on the international side of sports. They do a lot of soccer and the more European based, more European and South American based than anywhere else, because I think their main focus was on soccer and other European sports and things like that. So I know they really wanted to branch out into the American market, so they started reaching out to people with, I guess, with minimal writing experience, because I mean I'm a history major. There's, I mean, I know how to write. I know how to write a paper with an argument and be able to express an opinion and support it with fact. So in that term, that gives me the ability to express my opinion about things. Maybe not more so than others, but you kind of get where I'm going with this. So I started writing for them, and then Around the Foghorn was looking for writers, and so I applied with them. Now, certain things happened logistically with them, and there were some certain changes that I didn't agree with. So I ended up leaving, starting my own thing, which became China Basin Chatter, and we kind of had a little good thing going on for a little while, kind of nice homegrown feel thing. Didn't always work out, so I ended up going back to Around the Foghorn again for a little bit, and then ultimately kind of dropping the whole written journalism thing and starting to do my own podcasting. So, I wouldn't say that I have the most experience with amateur journalism. I know there's a lot of people out there that have run circles around me, yourself included. Um,
Hey,
well, but that all has to do more with dedication, though. So you can dedicate your time into that because that's where you want your investment to be in the sports journalism. I mean, I already have a career laid out. I'm getting my regular money from a totally different industry. Um, but there's a certain thing that I always say: when you're going to get into journalism and you're developing a repertoire, you're developing your resume, there you really need to learn, and there's a lot of things that you need to learn. You need to learn from other journalists, number one. Now my brother, he's a broadcast journalism graduate from University of Nevada in Reno. He became a producer for the news, but still, he works in a professional news environment. So the standards are a lot different there than would be if you were an amateur journalist writing for your own sports blog. So when you get into these amateur journalist things, there is a certain standard because you're putting yourself out there as a journalist, right? You're putting yourself out there in the public's eye. You're giving your opinion, and you're supporting it with the numbers. Hopefully, you're supporting it with numbers. Hopefully, you're supporting it with fact. It'd be kind of stupid to support your opinion with another person's opinion, but anyways, to try and get back on topic here.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you rant here. Go ahead.
You're gonna let me rant? Okay, all right. There's a new wave of people coming out and doing journalist things because sports websites are realizing that their markets are falling apart because no one wants to listen to old crony writers anymore. And written journalism is a dying. Newspapers are a dying thing. Even some online written journalism is dying in a way. So they're trying to find ways to interject. And what better way than to try and get fans involved? Let's get fans involved. Let's get them to start writing. Let's get their opinions on things. Let's get their takes on things. Yeah, it might not be an impartial opinion. Yeah, there might be some favoritism. Yeah, there might be some flaws in their writing, but for the most part, we can get it to work. And there's great Fansided has had a wonderful system that they've set up where they've been able to cultivate guys. But at the same time, a lot of major publications look at Fansided and go, yuck, you wrote for those guys, and it's not always recognized as a legitimate journalist thing. And that's because you have these other journalists who come along. There are people who are there to take it seriously, right? They're there to write articles. They're there to bring their opinion. They're there to be professional. And then there are other people who are just there to just tell you a story that doesn't make sense, that nobody cares about, that want to be. I'm going to be a fan, and I'm going to show you that I'm a fan in this article. I'm going to show you that I love this team in this article. Well, we know you love the team because we already know that you're a fan. That's already been established. You don't need to tell us that you're a fan of the team. We already know that your opinion is going to be partial to your team. You don't need to tell us that. So that's kind of where I get where I start to take problem with today's journalists. And growing up in these amateur journalists that are starting to come up and write for publications that are sponsored by these bigger companies like ESPN, Sports Illustrated, it becomes a real big problem because then people are like, well, what the hell is happening with journalists, with sports journalism in general? Is the legitimacy of sports journalism, is it starting to fall apart now that we're letting fans write articles and stuff? I don't know. My other part of this is if you're going to be a journalist and you want to purport yourself as a journalist, I say purport carefully. You need to have a certain level of professionalism online. You really do. People are not going to like what you're doing. People are going to hate what you're doing. People are going to be, whether it's fueled by jealousy or it's fueled by some personal beef or it's fueled by just because they can. And they will. I hate to drop haters, but that's the word that I'm going to use.
It's a good word.
Yeah. When you're going to do sports journalism, you're going to run into haters because you're going to run into somebody that's going to disagree with your opinion on something. Not everyone's going to agree with you that Barry Bonds belongs in the Hall of Fame. Not everyone's going to agree with you on that.
It's part of the job.
It's all part of the job. It's also part of the job to take hits from people. You're going to get hits from random people. That's the beauty of the internet, is there's total anonymity. I can get on, create a fake account, and start harassing you and start trashing you and start saying mean things to you and start commenting on your articles with all this crap. It's your job as a journalist to kind of just brush that off. You're here to write things. You're not here to, I guess you are here to interact with people because you want to build a fan base of people. You want to build your readership. But you don't want to start getting into fights with people. You don't want to start getting into pissing contests with people. You don't want to start validating the people that are trolling you, because I mean, really, that's what it is, and then to write articles lambasting your trollers, that's going to do nothing but enable your trollers.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm sorry. I know I've ranted, and people are probably like, "What the hell is this guy even talking about
No,
anymore?"
it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Um, I just think that if you, and this is my advice, being from a position of a person who's written for amateur journalists, from someone who started their own grassroots amateur journalism thing. Be professional. Start up your own Twitter account. Start up a professional journalist Twitter account where you can reference all of your stuff on there. You can post your articles. You can share everything. You can respond to people from there. Don't include your personal life on it, because nobody's here to listen to your personal life. Nobody really cares about those stories about, oh yeah, when I was a kid and 6 years old, I remember going to Candlestick Park. Nobody cares about that. And and that's also why when I started writing, I only wrote I wrote like a lot of series previews, recaps, things like that. I didn't write a lot of editorial or opinion pieces, because I didn't want to get dragged by people. But that's where, again, reporting a story, you're reporting facts, you're reporting on the facts, you're giving your opinion on the facts. When you start getting into these stories where you start just trying to tell some personal BS story about whatever, that's where you lose your audience.
Hmm. Yeah, for
And when
sure.
you and that's what I say, and you get people responding negatively, and then all of a sudden you start. Uh, and I don't want to pick on certain writers, because I know as I'm talking here, I know that I'm mentioning certain writers, um, talking about their personal lives in their articles. Um, that's a big no-no, right?
Yeah, the
I would
first
think
thing
so.
that I learned, my advisor, Miss Sutton, in high school, journalism advisor, first thing that I learned, first day of class, number one thing, this is not about you. Journalism is not about you. It's about the people in the community. It's about people in the country, in the world, in the state. It's about giving them information that they need to hear. It's giving them about information that they want to hear. And I think it gets lost sometimes by the points that you're listing. Um, for example, I mean, if I'm reading a game story um, from 20 years ago, it's going to be different than from today because of the internet. People want to get clicks. They do things to get clicks. And I think that's why we're starting to see more of those stories instead of just a game story. We're starting to see top 10 top 5 takeaways from the Giants loss over the Rockies. And it's because people want to get clicks, and you know, editorializing facts has just become a part of journalism. And it's not fun. I barely write opinions. Like nowadays for my college newspaper, I think I've written one, and it was because I had to meet the requirement of writing a one opinion piece. Um, I never write them. I like to write news. I love to write features. I love profiling people a lot, which is why I've only done one-on-one interviews on this podcast. Um, so, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Nobody cares about you because you're the journalist. You're the, if anybody has any biblical ties here, you are Gabriel the archangel delivering the news. um,
Well
you are,
put. Well put.
yeah, you are the news. Bet you are the bearer of the news. And Walter Cronkite never said I, never said me, never stated his opinion. He delivered the news. And that's why, and I hate to go down this route, but you're never going to see the straight facts on Fox, on CNN, on all those other things. But, you know, I think we need to get to a point where biasy, because at the end of the day, sometimes you're not just writing for, if you're writing for the Giants, sometimes you're not just writing for Giants fans. Sometimes, you know, if you're writing a profile or a news story on a top prospect that gets traded, whoever he gets traded to, a fan from that new team is going to want to look and possibly come across your work. So it's not just the people you think are going to read it. Anybody can read it. And I think it's unbelievable. And as you mentioned with the Twitter, uh, with the professionalism, you and I try as hard as I can to keep it professional. I give analysis based on facts. You give analysis based on facts. Sometimes I go with the hot takes. I'm not proud of it. Maybe I am, but but hot takes has become very popular. So it's a fun. This is an important subject because it is the future of the industry. It's the future of what I want to do. It's the future of what millions of other people want to do, and we need to be paying close attention to it. And I appreciate that you know shining a light on the industry.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a very small light, but you know, anyone who's listening out there who's thinking about starting up a blog, and I'm always encouraging people, look, start a blog, start a podcast, start doing something that you love doing. Make time for that. If it's something you really love to do it. But make sure you're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just do it because you want the attention. Don't just do it because you want. Do it because you love it. Do it because you believe in it. If you don't believe in it and you don't love it, if you're just using it as a platform to get attention, if you're just using it as a platform to get famous, meet players, talk to people, you're doing it for all the wrong things. And that's the divide between someone else and someone like you, who I watch you do your interviews with people. I watched you do your interview with Tyler Glass now, which was fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
Um, you know, I was joking earlier. I said, "Yeah, you interviewed a pitcher, and then all of a sudden you're going to come down and interview me." It's just a real drop down in interviewees there, buddy. But I feel grateful to be on, anyways.
Well,
Um,
it doesn't matter who you are. You and I could both agree that this was a fun podcast for the both of us.
yeah,
And as you mentioned, like the people that want to start up, podcasts and want to start up a blog are scared because they want it to get popular quick. And I knew that this would take time. I knew that starting a podcast, I'd have to be patient. I'd have to, you know, build it from the bottom because, and one thing that, and as you mentioned, people starting, one thing that I did early on was I sent my work to people in the industry. So I would always send stuff to Alex Pavlovich. He would always read it. I would always send stuff to, or most recently, Carrie Crowley. I sent stuff to these people to see what they thought about it. Um, and the reason I'm doing this promotion right here, RizzoCast Takeover, people that want to come on, I'm going to give them a platform. And I think this episode right here was a clear indication on what people, not necessarily household, like Nick Vezmar, you know, you're not known worldwide. I'm not known worldwide, but it still ended up being a good podcast, and I think that's amazing.
it's just and the technology these days, it has become so easy to get out there and just do it. That's what I say. If you have a real big interest for it, and you have a love for it, and you really want to do this, do it. You can go online, get yourself a nice microphone and headphones for $100. Doesn't cost you anything. See, exactly, right? Get yourself
It
set
was
up.
$25. This mic, I believe, was 150. But I mean, you could even go cheaper. And if you guys want advice on how to start a podcast, I have like a page and a half of notes that I wrote down for anybody that needs advice. So there you go.
So yeah. So anyways, I know you're wrapping it up here, but yeah, I really do. I encourage that people really get out there, start talking about something that you want to do. Yeah, and you're not going to become famous overnight. How long did it take you until you got your first MLB player?
That's a good question. Jason Vossler. And here's the reason how I found him. He signed with the Giants. I didn't know who he was. And I shot him a DM on Instagram. And luckily, he's one of the few that actually checked their social media DMs. So honestly, and I, I feel weird saying this, but I've sent DMs to every single player on the 2020 Giants. No joke. I know it's never going to happen, but it's worth a try. And that's the theme of this whole topic here. It's worth a try, but do it the right way, as Nick is saying. As you get more advanced, what I've had to learn as of late, I have to start going through agents, which is fun. So there's steps of the process that you have to go through. And look, I'm still not consistently getting over 100 views on YouTube. I'm getting a little more on, listening platforms, but it's nothing to be crazy about. But I don't care. I have fun doing it, and that's the bottom line.
As long as you have fun doing it and you love doing it, that's what's important. Like I said, you're not doing this for your own personal benefit. You're doing this so one day you can go and when you go and apply for major media outlets, and you now you have a body of work that you can take with you as
I
well.
will send them this episode.
God, I hope not.
Oh God, yeah. This was fun, Nick. I appreciate you coming on, spitting a lot of truth that some people need to hear, of course, and some
They'll
people
probably
need to.
never hear. They'll probably never hear this, but now it's out there. It's out there for the whole world to see.
Yeah, for sure. And we touched on a lot of important topics: Hall of Fame, Giants baseball, of course. I know a lot of listeners and watchers are in the Bay Area, so that could be helpful for them. Nick, I appreciate you joining me, and I'd love to have you back soon.
Yeah, no, this was a lot of fun. I had a really good time. Believe me, the fun all on this side, man. It was great.
Where can people
Again,
find you?
okay, all right. Do I get the social plugs now?
Yes,
Um,
your time to
so you
shine.
you can find me on the Twitter at not underscore. It doesn't start with this. Is Vez underscore Khalifa, Khalifa. Nice little play on the rapper name Wiz Khalifa. And if you want to add me on Facebook, I guess you can. You can find me on Facebook, Nick Vezmar, Vezmar. I think is that, yeah, that's how you spell my last name. I'm also on the Instagram, but yeah, you don't need all that. Just follow me on Twitter or Facebook. I always like talking sports with people. I always like kind of getting into it. I need to start getting back on Twitter more and more. I kind of took a little bit of a break towards the end of last year, but I'll try and get on again and really starting to push this. I really wanted to start doing. I'm starting to try and do a podcast with my brother. Him being an A's fan, but also being a big college football and NFL fan. Although the college football is totally done with for well, actually, no, I'm sorry. We got a Super Bowl still to go through. So not quite done just yet. But yeah, hopefully we're going to start doing that soon. And we'd love to have you on as well. I'm sure, talk baseball. It'd be great. But again, I appreciate this. And I honestly can't say this enough, you guys. I've seen Steven when he was basically at the beginning of his writing career and
A
to where he's
baby.
got a baby, a baby journalist writing for his high school paper, and to see where he's grown, to see where you've grown, Stephen. I'll talk to you directly. To see
Oh,
where you've grown, it there's an incredible, overwhelming sense of pride that I have, knowing that I know you, knowing that I've helped to. I don't know, maybe not necessarily develop, but be able to give you that platform to develop and and to help you out and just watch you grow. It's been amazing, and I really appreciate you that you're doing this, and I know you're doing it for the love of the game. I know you have such a deep appreciation for the game that not a lot of people have, especially in your generation, and even in my generation too, for that matter. But really appreciate you doing this. Really appreciate you having me on. Yeah, I'm hoping we can do this again sometime soon. I know as the season probably gets underway, spring training, we'll definitely have more to talk about. I'm really hoping the Giants try and make a push this year and try to just not be this mediocre 80-win team. But time will tell.
yeah, I appreciate those words, Nick. One thing real quick before we sign off here. China Basin Chatter was my first quick story. China Basin Chatter was my first experience with um the SEO. What does that stand for again? It stands for the
Search
search.
engine optimization.
Yes. And the WordPress would have, the colors, and it would have good, and it would have, have the different colors, and um that that was my first, and the first article I wrote just had all red. Like it was all bad, and I was like, God, what am I
I
doing?
remember. I remember because I remember I messaged you and I was like, dude, you kind of gotta. I really would prefer you around the orange. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
And it cleaned up a lot, and I think I don't know if you had the power to go back, but some of them ended up being green at the end of it, and that was a big help. And it taught me to definitely be more brief with what I was saying, because I would go on for too long,
Hmm.
and I would, things would not be journalistically sound. So that was a lot of fun, and that was a big help. Anyways, Nick, I appreciate you coming on. He told you guys where to follow him. Go ahead and do that. You guys could follow me on Twitter at Steven Rissotto, Steven with a V, RISSOTTO. And of course, the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at RizzoCast, RIZZOCAST. Have a lot more content for you coming up, including the road to, I believe we're trying to do the road to 60 episodes this year. Or no, maybe it was 90. I don't know. Either one. 60 is easy, but we're gonna try to double our total from 2020. Of course, the anniversary is in May, so we can't wait there. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Like, do all those fun things. Have a great day, everybody, and be safe and wear a mask.